it, it's really the execution. Execution at the end of the day is critical to any objective, whether it's investment objective of an investment plan, or the fact that you're going to change and do a flip-flop of English for BM and science. If you execute it well, or had you executed it well with the right components, it won't go wrong. Because, I mean, just taking that up, but probably this may not be a direct corollary to what I'm trying to say, but in Korea, because I actually asked this question to someone, why do you change the English language that's being used for BM and for maths and science into BM at this point? What I understood was Korea is a very developed nation. They use their national language for those two basic subjects. It's not the mode that determines the success. It's how it's done. So it's execution. You can teach someone very well, whether it's in BM or English, but do it right. And it goes back to what Pua was saying. You can tell someone to invest in the most sexy structured products or even a simple equity product. But if you didn't even put your facts right, you're going to get it wrong at the end of the day. So that's my short, simple answer. I probably find out which one of my colleagues want to answer. Jeffrey can't wait.
I just wanted to touch on your point about history, Rajan. I'm a history buff myself, and I think many times that we can actually learn from history, because I mean we are, you know, when you watch the History Channel, we've had humans running and fighting each other since 10,000 years BC. Of course, they were using clubs then, and they're now using nuclear weapons and using passenger planes to ship it. But I'm not so sure if we can actually learn from our lessons, because we've been looking at the West for so many years in terms of what they've done, what they've achieved, how they've industrialized themselves and so forth, how they've built their wealth. But we have seen this global financial crisis has shown us that even the West doesn't learn from their mistakes. I mean, they've gone through crisis after crisis, and this crisis has really taught them a lesson. So much so that, the more that, every time I go to the US, the more that I realize the US is becoming the world's largest emerging market. Okay, because they have not learned, they've spent and they've spent and they've spent. Yes, they've built up a lot of wealth, they've built up a lot of value, and they're still probably the US is still probably the major brain, bank of the world, because they've got a lot of very smart people, very innovative, very creative. But they've also gone the consumption way, in the sense that they've learned to use debt to their advantage. And the world has been, I don't know whether I should use the word stupid enough, but we've funded them. Okay, so it's come to a point where the Americans now realize that they can't do this much anymore, and because of that, they're starting to save again. And this is what makes them an emerging market, because they need to reduce the US dollar in order to create jobs for themselves and so forth. So really, I don't know. I mean, I think that history tells us what has happened and so forth, but because the world keeps moving along, and to me, I think the biggest driving factor is human greed. It is not so much history, it's not so much education, it's the desire to make as much money as you can in this lifetime that we have. So I think as long as we're more educated in how we pursue this objective, is probably what is probably more important.
Thanks, Jeffrey. Remember, Dato', but again, I remind you, the richest people are librarians.
Rajan's question was, will Malaysia succeed or fall flat? I'm very positive that Malaysia will succeed. For the simple reason, there is a shift of world power from the west to the east, number one. Number two, Malaysia has 3 ingredients, which is a very, very important ingredient to succeed whilst the power shifted to the east. Yes, we have the political willpower. On top of that, we engage with the talent that is available. And thirdly, we also have the infrastructure. All the 3 managed properly, we should succeed as a developed nation by 2020 with high income GDP per capita of 15,000 per capita. And for a start, I think the platform where we can really succeed is to be a financial center. We cannot compete with New York, London, Paris, and New York, Shanghai, Singapore, as well as Hong Kong, probably. But we are very clearly leading in the Islamic International Financial Initiative. So I am very positive that we are going to be seen as an international financial center dedicated on Islamic, because as I travel all around the world, including United States, when they talk about Islamic, who is the leader and who's ready, who has the regulatory and legal framework? It's Malaysia. So I think with that political willpower, top it up with talent, and top it up with infrastructure, we should succeed in 2020.
It's not impossible, but it takes everyone in this room to also think that way.
Well,
and
yeah.
We have time for one more question?
Last view?
Or what?
Well, I'm not really commenting on whether we should have history in the SPM and make it a compulsory passing subject or not. What I'm trying to link with is, in our investment space, SC always want us to write a word of past performance does not guarantee future return. And what I want to add on is that, again, if you have seen through the Lehman crisis and all this, what I want to tell, to let us aware is that despite we have so-called different type of risk management model, right? You have the value at risk, you have the all sort of models, but one thing that in the industry I think we should be aware of is that all these risk models normally don't work for the future unexpected risk. So don't assume that, when we say that we have certain risk model in hand, when crisis come, we won't get affected. Most of the time, we will still get affected because the risk model only handle the past historical risk that has happened. I always use the analogy is like safety on car, right? You start off with car, then people have accident, you come up with seat belt, and yet people still overspeed, die of accident, you have the airbag in front of your steering wheel, and then Princess Diana, Mercedes-Benz overturned, so you have the airbag on your ceiling, left, right, center, and yet people still die of accident. So same thing in investment, no matter what risk management tools that we have, it normally won't handle new crises. So just bear in mind, and that's why, like Jeff has mentioned, diversification and a proper asset allocation is always very important. Thank you.
Well,
thank you. I think we actually don't have time unless someone is really dying to ask another question to us. We will probably try and cap it at that. I think we've heard from everyone on the stage. Chui Chui has said that basically she shares the same opinion as us, if I may, on her behalf, unless you want to. Okay. Is there a question? Okay.
Okay, one last question, please. Huh?
Okay, all right.
We're really running short of time. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Richard Yao from Public Mutual. Now, I have one question. There's a recent trend in the US. They are printing money without any reserve, and they are pumping the liquidity into the Asian market, particularly Vietnam, Singapore, and so on. And they are buying up tons and tons of assets. I think certain amount of the money has also gone into the equity. So I would like to know from the panelists, how does this easy money coming from the US, printed hot from their press, affect our equity market and the Asian equity market in the future? And how long the bubble will burst? And how long do you think we can sustain this bubble? Thank you.
Thank you, sir. That's a crystal ball question, and I'm going to pass that to any of my panelists here.
Well, I think, I mean, you are very right that we are again fluxed with liquidity, right? And it's a very true fact that somewhere there will be bubble, right? But so long as we have to invest, therefore we have to invest very carefully and be very alert of any market movement. It's just like, I mean, I just take an analogy again, right? Okay, before I take the analogy, I mean, we just look at it. Currently, the world is totally messed up, frankly speaking, right? I mean, exactly, you have US printing money, excess liquidity, and on the other hand, you have the so-called cheap labor cost in the Asia part. That's why they are driving all buying cheap things and whatsoever towards the Asia flux, flooding into the equity market or even property markets or what have you. So in that context, I mean, as a fund manager or even as an investor, if you need to invest, it's just like I say in the analogy, you know that there will always be road accident on the road, right? There will always be accident on the road. So, but you still have to drive on the road. So it's a matter of just always keep yourself alert, right? Trying to, I mean, this is no easy job like that Jeff has mentioned. It's difficult, but like I say, all you have to do is that try to diversify. Sometimes if you think that it's a little bit overheated or you're getting a bit worried, it doesn't matter. You just keep your money in cash for a while rather than trying to chase it and go to higher and higher. I mean, the fact is, if you have to invest in the equity, you have to invest. If you don't have to invest, then you don't invest for the sake of investing. This is what I always say, right? I mean, if you don't have to invest for the sake of investing, stay away from